Good evening or good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Tan Xiao Chin, and I'm moderating the fourth YouTube session of the 9th International Women's Day edition of our Read for Pixels campaign. Through Read for Pixels, the Pixel Project is collaborating with 13 award-winning best-selling authors to raise awareness about violence against women and to raise funds for the Pixel Project to keep our efforts to end violence against women alive and kicking. We'll be telling you more about the Read for Pixels fundraiser, which has lots and lots of exclusive author goodies a little later in this session. You can find out more about the Pixel Project by visiting www.thepixelproject.net. Now, we have a very special guest for today's live Read for Pixels discussion and Q&A session, the lovely romance author Sonali Dev. Hi, Sonali. Welcome to Read for Pixels.
So good to be here.
Yes, it's lovely to have you. And just to give a bit of introduction, Sonali is the USA Today best-selling author who writes stories that actress Mindy Kaling calls, quote, hilarious and heartwarming, unquote. Her novels have been named Best Books of the Year by Library Journal, NPR, The Washington Post, Kirkus, BuzzFeed, and Pop Sugar. She has won numerous accolades, including the American Library Association's Award for Best Romance, the RT Reviewer Choice Award, and multiple RT Seals of Excellence. She has been a Rita finalist and has been listed for the Dublin Literary Award. Now, aside from spending time with us here today, Sonali has also generously donated some super exclusive goodies to the stash of author treats we have up as perks for donors at the Read for Pixels Rally at Fundraising page. And they are the Vibrant Years Bundle. Now, are you a big fan of gorgeously written women's fiction featuring 3 generations of fantastic Asian heroines? Well, Sonali will be giving away these exclusive book and sweat bundles to 5 Read for Pixels donors who must be in the United States. However, 3 of these bundles have already been taken up, thanks to 3 donors who wish to remain anonymous. Now, each bundle includes one signed and personalized The Vibrant Years trade paperback. And there, I think Sonali has it. You can show us. There we go. That's the one you'll be getting. 2 bangles.
You will be getting the trade paperback, but that's the hardcover.
Oh, okay. So the trade paperback, not the hardcover. And she'll also be throwing in 2 bangles, 1 book-related sticker, and 2 book-related bookmarks. The second bundle, which is her Austen in Bollywood bundle, which is also for donors in the US only. Now, if you are a fan of modern retellings of Jane Austen's evergreen romances, you are in for a marvelous treat. Sonali is offering 2 of these special bundles featuring all the books in the RAJES series, which is her love letter to Austen with a gorgeous Bollywood twist. The bundle includes 1 signed and personalized paperback set of the RAJES series, which comprises Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors, Recipe for Persuasion, Incense and Sensibility, and the Emma Project. And you will also get 2 bangles, 1 book-related sticker, and 2 book-related bookmarks. But there is only 1 bundle left, thanks to Saraswati Kannan, who has already donated to get one of these bundles. Now, the last bundle that Sonali has given is a 1-hour Zoom call for donors worldwide. This 1-hour Zoom session will allow an individual donor, a book club, or a library reading club to chat with Sonali about books and writing. And it has already been snatched up by a donor who wishes to remain anonymous. So thank you, donor. Thank you to all the donors so far. Now, we are currently at $925 out of our $5,000 goal, which is a bit slower than we would like at this stage of our fundraiser. So please do give generously before the fundraiser ends on April 15 next month. All funds go towards the Pixel Project's work to help end violence against women. And if you're watching this session on YouTube right now, you will also be able to ask Sonali questions live. Just make sure you're logged into your YouTube account so that you can type your questions into the chat box to the right of the YouTube screen. And Regina, who is today's producer and chat box moderator, will relay them to me to read out to Sonali to answer. And now, over to Sonali. What will you be reading for us today?
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to be reading from The Vibrant Years. And this is the story, to give you some background, of 3 generations of Indian women and how they navigate life. And the way they do that in this story is that they're all researching a dating app together. So it's 3 generations of Indian American, South Asian American women, a grandmother, a mother, and a granddaughter who are on the dating scene at the very same time. And I'm going to be reading a conversation between the grandmother and the granddaughter. And
All right. The
um,
floor is yours.
thank you so much. All right. So, chapter 5, Kali. For years before I met her, she'd been my muse. I dreamed of Purnima every night. The script possessed me like a fever. But I knew I would never make the film unless the Purnima from my dreams appeared before my camera. From the Journal of Oscar Say. Every chapter opens with a journal entry that then adds up to a mystery through the book. All right, so chapter 5, Kali. I have a hot date tonight. It wasn't quite the way one expected their conversation with their grandmother to start, but Kali might suspect body swapping if her Binji didn't say something firmly ungrandmotherly at least once a day. Get on video call so you can help me choose what to wear. It was barely 9 in the morning in California, and Kali had been working until 4 that morning. But it was almost noon in Florida, where Binji was. So Kali blinked the sleep from her eyes and dutifully switched the call to video, and was met by a close up of her grandmother's ample cleavage. Binji, your girls are all I see. Kali couldn't remember when she'd combined her grandmother's name Bindu and the Marathi word for grandma Aji and come up with Binji, but it fit her grandmother perfectly. Binji stepped away from the phone, which she always propped up on the vanity in the bathroom of her fancy new condo when she needed fashion advice from Kali. And by needed, Kali meant demanded, because the aim of the exercise was somewhat more complicated than it appeared. Her grandmother was a fashionista, and Kali was, well, not. These sessions were meant to inspire Kali to live a little and find her inner diva. To Kali, that sounded like far more trouble than it was worth. At 25, Kali sometimes felt like she had lived a little too much already, done all the things people try to accomplish over their lifetime. And honestly, her inner diva just wanted to take a nap. Why are you still in bed? Twirling around, Benji modeled the hot pink wrap dress that hugged her unfairly spectacular body. Don't the girls look great? It's this bra. It gives armor grade support. These cutlets are like having fists shoved under the boob droop. Kali stretched against the high-density zoned support mattress that was supposed to preserve the backs of desk-bound workaholics everywhere. That sounds painful, Binji. How is it fair that you look better in a fitted dress than your granddaughter? How come I didn't inherit all that? Binji adjusted the ruched and wrapped fabric under her breasts, further magnifying the pillowy cleavage, which looked even better for the delicate lines that glazed her skin like brush strokes on a canvas. You did inherit my looks. You also inherited my son's insouciance, so you don't bother with the upkeep it takes to work them to your advantage. Do you know how much moisturizer has gone into this décolletage in the past 2 decades? She twisted to give Kali a view of her butt, which hadn't held up quite as well to gravity. Sure, that might seem like a mean thought to have about your grandmother, but only to someone who couldn't see quite how stunning her Binji was. No lies were necessary. Why don't they make bras for the bum? Cutlets are needed there too. Binji's brown bordering on hazel eyes, which fortuitously Kali had inherited and needed no upkeep, lit up. How's that for a business idea? Kali groaned. Right, broths. Yes, you should patent that. Kali rolled onto her side and propped the phone against the pillow next to her. You sound like Ma. Because if her mother didn't turn every conversation into a lecture about potential, she thought she'd waste away into the ether of bad parenting. My one patent is causing me enough heartache right now. As soon as the words slipped out, Kali regretted them. because Benji's eyes started studying her as though Kali were a diamond she was gauging for cut, clarity, and color. Don't compare me to your mother. I do not have a twig stuck up my lady parts. Ouch. A thorny twig, too, lately. Tell me about this heartache business. Is Hot Steve causing you problems again? Moving off camera, Benji started making sounds that indicated a dress change. No, Kali mumbled, when an answer was too complicated. No was the perfect stand in. Hot Steve was not the one causing Kali problems. Kali was the one doing that. He was just using her problems against her. You should never sleep with someone you work for. It should be the first lesson women are taught in school. Benji came back into the frame, this time in a flowy white eyelet dress that was substantially lower on the cleavage exposure. A little less new Benji. Through most of Kali's childhood, her grandmother had stuck to tunics and capris and the odd kaftan or mini dress, and saris and salwar kameez brought out only for special occasions. Always fashion forward and never anything like anyone else's grandmother. But this new super hot style choice was only 6 months old. 6 months ago, Benji had mysteriously come into some money and bought herself a fancy condo where rich white people went after retirement to enjoy and flash their wealth. It was yet another of the many ways in which their family had changed after Kali's parents' midlife crisis divorce. But the ease with which Benji had made the transformation was both disconcerting and oddly natural. How would you know, Benji? You've never worked for anyone. Must be nice. Be arrogant. Kali wasn't in the mood to argue the point, because really, it kind of did. A flash of annoyance passed over Benji's face. Then she smiled, her upbeat self again, and spun around, displaying a back exposed all the way down to her waist, with a deftly located band of lace across the back of her bra. Not only did I work in the home, but I was the best homemaker of anyone I know. Benji made a face. Wait a minute. If you consider your grandfather my boss, then, well, I did sleep with him. A lot. She got that sharp, sexy look as she appraised herself over her delicate shoulder. That look was all Benji. Old Benji and new Benji, all rolled up in one. She always looked you full in the eyes, like she owned herself and she wanted you to know it. Maybe it was the contrast between her two grandmothers, but it was a look Kali had learned to identify early in life. 7 days a week for most of our marriage, Benji finished with a wink. Oh my god, Benji, TMI. Even as Kali yelled it, she knew the redundancy of it. As one of the most elegant coders of her generation, thanks for the pressure, Fortune magazine, Kali understood redundancy if she understood anything. TMI should have been Bindu Desai's middle name, her platform if she'd been a social media influencer. Her grandmother thrived on too much information. JEI, curly whirly. Did you know that LOL really stands for living out loud? Her grandmother tucked her sleekly bobbed hair behind her ear. She had professional highlights now, replacing her usual drugstore boxed color in dark medium brown. Another one of the changes since she'd moved into the schmancy new community. I'm pretty sure you're making that up, just like you made up JEI. Just enough information hasn't caught up in popular culture for a reason. Popular culture is for sheep, Kali mouthed it along with her grandmother as she made her favorite declaration. Now focus. Dress. Which one?
Oh, thank you, Sonali. That was really lovely. And oh, let me just pop in a comment here from one of our readers. So this is from Misty306. Misty is one of our regulars. Hi, Misty. And she works in the library. So my library patrons love Sonali Dev's books.
Thank
So
you.
there you have it, Sonali.
And thank you, patrons. Thank you.
Okay, let's hop straight into the questions. Now, as we just heard, All your stories feature complex female protagonists like Bindu, Ali, and Kali Desai in the vibrant years, and as well as the Raja women, India Dashwood and Naina Kohli in the RAJES series. And they are all resourceful and compelling women with agency who do their best with with the cards they are dealt with in life. So, who or what are the inspirations behind your female characters?
Oh boy, that's a I mean, it's all the women I know, right? And each one is there's a different story, but I think behind each each story I have. This is
Mm-hmm.
The Vibrant Years is my ninth novel, so
Mm,
there's 9, 10, 11, like 12 heroines, and they all kind of, I think, I. I'm really lucky to be surrounded by very many really strong, willful, stubborn yet incredibly nurturing women.
mm,
So I've rarely met a woman that I'm close to, or whom I'm close to, that is one thing that
mm,
is a stereotype. And I think
mm.
one of the problems with stereotype is you take the one thing and you kind of extrapolate it into the person's entire personality, when often human beings are braiding together of many things, soft
Yeah.
and harsh and bright and dark and all of that. Bindu's character, I think, for me especially, was just something I've always wanted to write, because it always bothered me how older women have been represented in fiction, and
Mm,
media. They're either represented as these body comic relief kind of louder, clueless women, or then as the sacrificing, nothing but nurturing grandmothers,
mm.
wise
Yeah.
advice. But I rarely, all the older women I know are all of those things. You don't suddenly, in your 60s and 70s, just stop being a whole person and become, one piece. And so I wanted to write a woman who had all of that complexity very much front and center, who hadn't given up on her desires, who still, was very much in possession of her sexuality and her body, and yet she had all
Mm,
this wisdom because she has lived. And
mm,
I think that Bindu is my homage to those women. And there's a very specific kind of story of where she came from. And if we have, do we have the time? And I can quickly tell you where she comes from. Growing up in Bollywood films, do I have a minute to tell this? It's
sure. Yep. Go ahead.
so, I grew up on Bollywood films, and one of the first things I kind of remember noticing from the movies of the 70s, uh, the 60s and the 70s, was that actresses were divided very firmly into
Yes.
two roles. It was the good girl, who was the
Mm-hmm.
heroine, who you could take home to mom, and who was sacrificing and modest, and all of
Mm,
that. And then there were the cabaret girls, or the vamps,
mm.
as they were called, and they wore the western dresses. They had a whiskey glass in one hand and a cigarette in the other, and they kind of hung out in bars with men and things like that, and never the twain could meet. Right? It was
Mm,
a very very firm divide. And I always wondered about that, and over time that has changed. But
mm,
back then, that was my first understanding that society did this. It labeled us, and then
mm,
it told us that once you take on the label of the bad girl, there was no getting away from it. And yet I thought these women who did these roles, and who were the ones who had more courage. They were the ones who fascinated me more, because I was thinking, in a time when everyone around you is bent on misunderstanding who you are and slotting you in this undesirable role, to have the strength to do that because it's fun and because that's who you are, that was more powerful to me. And so I wanted to write that woman, really, what is she like in her real life, right? Because no
mm,
one is one note. And so Bindu kind of comes from, but Bindu's original seed idea came from me trying to kind of explore the life of what women back then who wanted to be more than what, what society absolutely wanted them to be. I wanted to
Mm.
go into the head of, a woman like that.
Okay, and this ties in perfectly with my next question. As you know, like any other genre, romance has its fair share of female stereotypes and tropes. In addition, your stories focus on Asian female characters, specifically those of Indian heritage. So it's probably not a stretch to deduce that the risk of stereotyping is tripled when genre, gender, and race intersect. So, how do you break such stereotypes to create female characters with agency in dealing with the world around them, including situations that involve sexism, misogyny, and violence against women and girls?
That is, that's a really good question, but it's also, I think, at the heart of why I write in the first place.
Mm,
And what attracted me toward doing this thing is, one of the reasons is that the stories I was reading, obviously, I wasn't seeing, the narratives I wanted to see, and a lot of, like, growing up, especially in my early young adulthood, a lot of the books we read were written by men. There was
mm,
Jane Austen, and the Bronte sisters, and that sort of thing. But and really, Jane Austen was the only classic author that I had read, which is one of the reasons that she's such an influence in my life. Was the only
mm,
author I remember where her protagonists actually believed they deserved things, and demanded them, and didn't end up dead or miserable, but got the things they wanted simply by getting into a journey of growth. So it was the
mm,
it whatever they were doing wrong, they fixed, but it was never from a place of apology for who they were or self-loathing, right? And I have
mm,
not seen that in stories. And I think for me, it's very, very important, in as much as I know, and we are all learning every day. So in as much as I know at that point, to use that to switch narratives, right? To change what we should, because I think so much of the female journey is conditioning, especially
mhm,
growing up, I think, in more traditional cultures or families. Actually, I shouldn't even say that. I think it's across the board that at a very young age, girls are taught, you know, um, to be everything to everyone. They're praised for domesticity, how well they take care of people, how they look. These are the things they're praised for, and we internalize that, right? And so then later in life, as we start to find out who we really are, there's a lot of deconditioning that we have to do. And I think that narratives where we see women behaving in a way where where desire is not maligned, or going
mm,
for what you want is not maligned, where caring for yourself, and understanding, like digging into who you are and what you really want, without it being made to sound like you're selfish. So just from the very basic levels, I think, to break down, not just stereotypes of how the world sees us, but how we are trained to see ourselves. So I think
mm,
I overtly, go looking for heroines who do that, who are, sorry, who are coming from a place of, I'm sorry, who are
no
coming
worries.
from a place
Mm,
of being stuck, being sandwiched between societies and their families' expectations and what they
mm,
really want. Because I think for me, my life's journey has been that tightrope walk of trying to do what I really want, because to be who I really want to be, whilst
yes.
also maintaining community, and whilst also um, being being the lodestar for my family, and doing those
Mm,
things, but kind of understanding how to navigate that, where I don't have to sacrifice what I want for that. So that tightrope walk, I think, really characterizes. It's a very universal journey, and it's definitely a very universal female journey, and it's definitely been mine. And that that's the place I come at these characters from. And anytime I start to hear, I do pay attention to to why my heroines are doing what they're doing, and and their journeys are in breaking these stereotypes down, so it's natural and organic to those stories.
Oh, yeah. And okay, so you were talking about the like pigeonholing of female roles in Bollywood, right, earlier. So now, and as you were just lovelily articulating, your heroines are complex human beings in their own right, who are each dealing with personal challenges, including feelings of insecurity and vulnerability, and navigating the tightrope between the competing influences of their Indian roots and their American home, both of which have their own particular cultural expectations for women and girls. Now, have you encountered any pushback from romance readers who aren't used to a more diverse range of heroines beyond the stereotype of the beautiful white heroine? And if yes, what are some of the typical pushbacks you have received, and how have you addressed these objections? So, have you encountered pushback?
So here's the thing that I sold my first book exactly 10 years ago, and
Hmm.
these 10 years have been a sea change, as in
Mm,
in what's being published, and how people are opening up to stories outside of the white norm, right?
yeah.
That journey has gotten on its way. It's a long way
Mm,
to go, but it's gotten on its way. So it's very different from where I was when I was trying to sell my first book. And obviously, when I was first trying to sell my first book, there was, it was like was a sea of whiteness, where we were partly told that we don't fit, that there's no market for us, that there's no market for these stories. And
mm,
from there to tokenism, where everyone feels compelled, which is, and all of that is, you navigate your journey as to take advantage as much as you can of of whatever is going on around you, because in the end all you want to do is tell your stories, right? And all you want is is to show and to have accepted that your story is as worth telling as any other. And so that journey has very much been alive in these past 10 years. So obviously, the first pushback and the most important pushback is sales numbers. And we hear all the time, the overtness of a cover, putting people of color on the cover. All of these, you know, have we've seen them be roadblocks until someone pushed through them, right? And
mhm,
so sales are weaponized against authors of color all the time, without
mm,
thought being given to the fact that we are literally creating a market that doesn't exist, which means that we need that much inertia. So anything that's starting from
mm,
nothing requires more of a push. And so to just kind of get publishers on board first, to understand that support is needed, time is needed, and things are moving exponentially. In it's not the stories, like we were told over and over again, that no sales equals bad writing, no sales equals
mm,
stories, and that was absolutely untrue. And we're starting to find that more support pushes that up and pushes that up. But in the end, the readership has to get to a place, because they've been trained, to accept the white norm and anything. And especially in genre fiction, like
mm.
romance, people read for comfort. Nothing wrong with that. But then that comfort zone is weaponized again,
Ah,
against a story
mm,
that's different. Now, one of the things that happens specifically in romance is the second, because people are, the tropes and the familiarity is so delicious,
mm.
right? We all love the hero standing in a doorway, with his crossed in his Henley with his biceps bulging out. All of that gives us true joy because there's this, delicious familiarity.
Mm,
And again, nothing wrong with it. But as soon as you insert culture that isn't the neutral white norm, or isn't what's been drilled into the readership over 100 years, then
yes.
you have to give context. And the moment
Mm,
you have to give context, you are accused of pulling a person out of the story, or you're accused of,
ah,
leaning into women's fiction. For a long
mm,
time, certainly with my first four books, it was so hard to for the publisher to even kind of try to put it out there as contemporary romance, which is exactly what it was. My first book is classic rom com,
mm,
Bollywood
mm,
affair, classic rom com, and they kept trying to market it as women's fiction, as
mm,
something that it was not, because the second you insert culture into it, it became a matter of lens, and you
mm,
heard all these things where yes, but it's not. Whereas when I say the word duke, I need to give you no context because there have been 100 books,
yep.
which have already set that up for you. But when I say, you're from an Indian royal family, then I have to give you context of princely states and how that worked in India. Right? As soon as you do that, it's like, oh, this is going into fiction. So those are, I think, ways in which, even without meaning to, the readership and the industry and even your allies, weaponize these terms, and it works against us. And so context is something that is all of our story, because it's not coded in the reader. And as soon as you give context, you're accused of moving away from genre. And so we have, these are the things that I think will change only over time, and will change as people read more and more and understand more and more.
Oh, wow, that's great. And okay, let's come at this same theme, but from a slightly different angle. So, as we mentioned earlier, and as you also have described, your heroines tend to be complex, with some of them being perceived as being arrogant or standoffish by other people, but actually dealing with feelings of insecurity and vulnerability on the inside. So, for example, Dr. Trishna Raj from Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors, and Ria Pakar from The Bollywood Bride and A Change of Heart. So, do you ever feel pressured by cultural and social expectations to make your female characters relatable and likable?
Oh boy. So that's a very complicated question, because I hear comments from people where the things that a lot of other heroines do, as soon as a South Asian or an Indian heroine does it, you get the whole kind of, oh my gosh, it's so sad that this happens to your people. Like that's the place readers are coming from. And my reaction to that is this: when before you do that, the thing to understand is that in certain cultures, and certainly in Indian culture, the misogyny is overt because the
Mm-hmm.
patriarchy is overt. And one of the things that helps with is that it is impossible to deny, right? You cannot
Mm,
be in denial about daughters and sons being treated differently, because a few decades ago it was obvious, right?
mm, mm,
It was obvious in a century ago, it was obvious in the laws. The sons got all the property, so all of that, it was obvious, it was overt, you couldn't deny it. And so you could identify a problem, and over the past centuries, certainly the past few decades, you've been able to address it, and you can see an actual change in the levels of misogyny, in how how girls are being raised, how girls are being educated, because it was an obvious problem. When you look at Western culture and when you look at America, it the misogyny is so silent that it is easy to,
mm,
right? And
mm,
so unless you are committed to being open-eyed about it, unless you're committed to looking and listening, it's very easy to say it doesn't exist in our society. So when you're reading from that place, then it's very easy to say, oh my gosh, it's so sad that women are treated differently in your culture. Whereas the universality of it is actually very true. We are all taught, to give beauty a certain, how we look. That's part of the patriarchy, how we're expected to look, how our identities are tied to our beauty. The same like having a beautiful home, that's domesticity. You can tell me that that is not part of American life as a woman, and so it's about I think it's about that. It's about um, kind of slowly and slowly and slowly opening your eyes to what is really going on, and I think that I try very hard to make that front and center in my books. The journey of self discovery, I try to make that front and center. And if you're making a journey for self discovery, then you cannot be perfect when perfectly comfortable in your skin when you start out. The whole point of these books is is taking the journey with the protagonist to being okay in your skin, right? Because
Yeah.
each one of our essential journeys, right? None of us are born, as children. Rarely is anybody completely comfortable in their skin. It takes time to get there, and that's why these are so such relatable stories. And of course, I have some characters have that much more trauma and that much more to deal with, and I think that actually standoffishness, shyness, today it's becoming, because people are becoming much more aware of social anxiety and all of that. So when I wrote Rhea Parker in The Bollywood Bride, she today her journey seems much more familiar, because so many of us are putting it out there that yes, it is hard for us to deal with with people outside of our circle, that it is hard for us to present. And the story of Rhea essentially was the story of someone who has agoraphobia, who has someone who is afraid of crowds, someone who is terrified, of is paralyzingly shy, to use an
Yeah.
old-fashioned word. Someone like that, being forced into the spotlight. She's forced into stardom when she has a hard time even talking to someone in a grocery store, and now the entire world has a spotlight on her. And that's violating at a very basic level, right? And so that is her story. And so I think the standoffishness is 10 years ago might have been a little bit like, oh my god, she's not the perky, happy, funny, sweet romance heroine. But I do think that today that's not how people see a female character, and I think that's great growth, just as a society and as a readership, right? And so if I had backed away from Rhea the way she was, then then that would not be true to that journey. And I think Trisha in Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors, for me, so that's a gender swapped Pride and Prejudice
Yeah.
um, homage. And so she is Mr. Darcy, and Mr. Darcy's character basically is someone who has every privilege of his time, right? And who owns it completely, never apologizes for it, is very comfortable with all the gifts he was born with, and what that has done for him is that he has not developed a lens of empathy. So his intention is always great. He carries his gifts, with really good intent, but he has never, been told that that when you view someone who doesn't have everything you have, um, that's that lens of empathy to process another person's journey he does not possess. And his growth arc in Pride and Prejudice is understanding that, oh gosh, I have never learned empathy, I have never learned how to carry my gifts in a way where I understand the world as I present myself. And so he grows empathy. And Trisha's
mm,
journey was exactly that. I wanted to write a woman who could own her gifts, who
mm,
could own her privilege, and that him arrogant, as it makes Trisha arrogant, or it appears as arrogance, because
mm,
you're so comfortable with all of your gifts, and you have no, you're not operating from a place of empathy. And I wanted to write a female heroine like that, whose growth arc didn't lead to apology, didn't lead to breaking her down, right? But it
mm,
led to her maintaining her, her confidence in herself, maintaining all the good that came with it, the comfort in her skin, but also realizing that really, what I'm lacking is the lens of empathy. And until I get that lens of empathy, I'm not going to be the person I believe I am and I want to be. And so she grows empathy, but she never apologizes for the things she has. And I wanted her to walk, that line.
mm,
And so her prickliness has simply to do with the fact that she's too busy doing things for people, uh,
mhm,
to worry about people, right? But
mm.
that's not how it works, because then people are seeing you and feeling your, disconnection. So to connect with the people that she wants to do things for
Mm.
is her journey.
Lovely. Okay. Yeah, and speaking, I mean, I really love that explanation, by the way. And speaking of journey, right? So over the past 10 to 15 years, the hero in many romance books has significantly evolved, and we are seeing of a far wider range of heroes as well. Your male protagonists like Yash and Vance Raje, DJ Kane and Federico Silva from the RAJES series are all well-developed heroes with their own vulnerabilities as well as strengths. Do you think reframing how stories describe men away from hostile and toxic stereotypes and towards complexity and even vulnerability can be one of the ways romance writers can break away from harmful tropes that promote toxic masculinity and the dehumanization of women?
I mean, this is a simple answer. Yes. Answer. But absolutely. I mean, I believe this in life.
Mm,
With the men I love, my husband and my son, my
mm,
mother, my father, are, all men I see as feminists, because they believe in the equity of genders, right? Of
mm,
humanity. And yet the patriarchy works through their subconscious as much as it works through our subconscious. And I think it
mm,
does as much harm to men as it does to women. I mean, we tend to, the easiest way to look at it is, it's easy to say, I mean, of course men benefit from male privilege, so why would they give it up? But that's only
mm,
a piece of it, because male privilege, or the patriarchy, also keeps them, I mean, if my son is, far more nurturing just naturally than my daughter is, right? In
mm.
10 years ago, or if he were born 20 years ago, he was born 20 years ago, but if he was born 20 years before
Mm,
he was born,
mm,
then he would have had to squish that, he would
mm,
have had to suppress that part of him. Or a man who likes to look good, who, enjoys color, and, and
mm,
whatever, right? Would have had to fit in with, so we were, or a boy who's not naturally, athletic, is made to feel shitty, right?
mm,
Boys are harmed too. And so the patriarchy very much harms boys, right?
mm,
As much, but it's not to anyone's advantage to take away, to say only X is permissible for X gender and only Y is permissible for Y gender, and to force, people into those rubber stamps. That harms everybody. And I think people are starting to see that. And I think, heroes who overtly think about that, is, Yash being, the oldest son, the pressure
mm,
he carries, of that title, is, has harmed him so very much through his life, right? He has not
mm.
been able to be who he is. And it has given him gifts too. So each one of us has to walk, has to figure out how to balance that. And I think
Mm.
that's what makes a real character. I have a huge issue, and always have, with this whole labeling, ooh, he's an alpha,
Ah, okay.
no, I mean, it just is absolutely, it just uh, gets on my last nerve. The term alpha does. And I understand, when people were writing it and what we knew then. As I said, it's we will know in in another few decades much more than we know today, and we might feel back then that what we were doing today was, you know, maybe we don't even know the harm that we're doing. But in as much as with whatever to be true, you have to do the best you can. And you know a
Mm.
man who is obsessed with protecting a woman, obviously is saying that women cannot protect themselves. From where I'm standing,
Ah,
that
right.
is a matter of taking away agency, right? And
Yeah.
so writing men who trust women to know what they need to do, who trust women's understanding of their own safety, that's the world I want to see, right? Instead of a man
Mm.
who is, bashing people up to keep you safe, right? Like that's
Yeah.
that whole thing. Or who needs to lead. I mean, good for you if you need to lead, but then what about, how does that work in a relationship? Or, I think, to me, in my life, a man who listens, a man who makes me feel seen, a man who lets me lead when I'm better at something, and
Mm.
leads when he's better at something, but has that negotiation ongoing with me. That's what makes me feel, whole. That's what makes me feel seen, and that's what I want
Mm.
heroines to feel. That's what I want my readers to demand from their relationships, right? So
Mm.
so the heroes are a very integral part of that. And I don't want a heroine who has to teach a man all of this, right? um,
Yes.
it's just I feel like the conversations I want my hero and heroine to be having is about what piece of your trauma and my trauma can we heal in each other, right?
Mm.
Don't want my heroine to be be the person through whose pain a hero learns that, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't be an alpha. So I just feel like
Mm.
it's I think we have to get past that stuff. And I think the heroes we write, it's
Mm.
incredibly important for breaking, for turning the narratives around. And I think a lot of um, contemporary heroes are that, absolutely. And I'm so glad
Mm.
that you know I mean, that is happening.
Yeah, and having said that, what do you think romance as a genre can teach other genres about writing about violence against women, sexism, and misogyny?
Oh gosh, so much. Because to me, romance really is, anyone who says that romance is about finding love or finding a romantic interest, I think isn't a reader of romance or doesn't understand the genre. Because the genre essentially is the journey of the protagonists healing themselves, finding themselves, so that they're in a place where they can let love in.
Mm.
Any I mean, I certainly, the last 2 decades of the romance that's been written is very much focused on the journey of self growth and self healing. And
Mm.
I think that that is the essential journey of any story. Like, if I were to say across genres, there is only one story, and that is that there is, a person who is uncomfortable, who is in a situation where them and their situation are at odds. So there is
Mm.
this feeling of discomfort. So it's an uncomfortable person making the journey toward feeling comfortable, right? Being
Yeah.
okay with what is happening, whether that is by changing themselves or changing the situation or dying trying. Like, that's every genre, that's the journey, right? So you either like the world, you change yourself, or you die trying. And so really the lens of each genre is different whilst telling that story. The focus is different, and in romance the focus is intrinsically human. right? It's coming from a
Mm,
place of of emotion, of understanding the emotions of that growth.
mm,
And I think any story is served well by focusing on on the characters, base makeup, and how the character deals with the world from a
mm,
place of their emotions. And every story is I mean, anything, any I'm a huge fan of police procedurals and
wow.
superhero stories. But
Mm,
you watch a superhero movie and there is just something, some that are noise and action, and some that make you tear up and make you want to literally stand up and kind of sing an opera. opera. And where
mm,
that difference isn't sold, right? The second,
mm,
um, the second the superhero's journey becomes, comes from true, from a place of true wounds and place of true healing, um, they're suddenly sold to the story, and a story where the action feels devoid of any real connection or emotion, feels like noise. And so I think that focus on that close lensed focus on emotion and person's self-awareness is certainly something that all genres would benefit,
mm.
um,
Yeah.
coming from
And
romance.
awesome. And I think this is a good time to come into one of our a question from the audience from Misty Trio 6. And she says, I know this is a generic question, but who and what are you reading right now? What superhero story are you reading?
I am, at this minute, I'm doing a lot of research reading for my next project. But I can't actually talk about. But to give you a hint, I'm reading a lot about this warrior princess, this Indian warrior princess who fought the British in the 1857.
Ooh.
And so that's essentially what I'm reading. But I will say that one of the most fun things I read recently was Amulya Maladi has a book coming out, I think at the end of March, called A Death in Denmark. And it's this new, Hercule Poirot kind of PA, private
Mhm.
detective story. And it's this hate crime that has happened in Copenhagen. And, it is such a fabulous story of, just how, what governments want us to believe,
Mm,
and how crimes are used to divide people, and how how truth is often something we don't see when we react in these social media and media directed ways. And yet it's this very human story of this person who actually cares about the truth and then goes looking for it.
wow. Okay. That definitely sounds fascinating. Okay. Well, we're nearly coming to the end of our questions, so we're gonna switch the theme a bit, and you yourself are a parent, and parents are usually the most influential role models in a person's life. As a mother, what do you think parents can do to help prevent violence against women and girls in future generations, and to get boys involved in helping to do so?
That is, the $1 million question, right? Because I think changing changing culture, and I don't want to throw around terms like rape culture, but at the heart of, or at the base of a lot of I think violence against women is the belief of who owns their bodies, who owns them,
Mm,
what is
mm,
right. And I think having those conversations with your boys at a very early age, you know is incredibly important.
mm,
What is yours and what is not yours,
mm,
ownership. Even if the world tells you, if religion tells you, whatever tells you that or interpretive, you know forms of culture, whatever they tell you, in the end, complete autonomy of a of every human of whichever gender over their self. This is the piece that, I think these are, at the very base level, these are the conversations, right? Of course, you talk to your boys about consent, and you talk to your boys about roles and respect and all of that. But I think that even digging, deeper, and just understanding his the history of what men have, because I mean, even whether it's violence, in whether it's sexual violence or physical violence, the basis of it is power, right? Even
mm,
rape is never about lust; it's about
mm,
power, right?
mm,
As is any kind of violence, and so that power dynamic, can only change in the ways that we treat our boys, how we allow them to treat their sisters, how we allow them to treat other girls on the playground, right? And
mm,
breaking down the nonsense that has been thrown around, where tugging a girl hair and calling her names is a way of
mm,
is in any way a healthy way of showing your affection or whatever, right? And those things at the very base level, I think, need to be broken down. But also in terms of, I think for me, um, housework, nurturing, that cannot be the realm of girls. Like I said, it's
mm,
it's in my home. I have, you know a nurturing son, and
mm,
and a daughter who much rather not, you know, cook. And my son is a fabulous cook and all of that. And it wasn't directive, it was simply listening, right? What is each child's natural ability, rather than saying,
mm,
when I was growing up, it's amazing to me now, but I heard so much of the whole, if you don't learn to cook, how will, who will feed your family? Or what
mm,
will happen when
mm.
you get married? Who will run a house? And girls were given so much, that was given so much importance, running a household,
Yes.
knowing those things. And my brother was not taught those same things. My brother was taught breadwinning, another thing where we go back to patriarchy harming men,
Mm,
where it puts so much pressure, puts all the pressure of breadwinning on them,
mm.
which can also make them feel like huge failures if they're not succeeding in those traditional ways, right?
Yep.
Whereas, if you're in a relationship where where your wife is the person who is better equipped at breadwinning, then it should be completely normal for you to take care of the home front, right? I mean, that
Mm,
is logical. And yet culture will kind of call that whole dynamic names that are ugly, right? And
mm,
so those are the things, I think, with your boys, that can be taught in the home. Now, you said that as a parent, you're the greatest voice, but I don't know, as a parent of 24-year-old and a 22-year-old, you do the best you can, but you're fighting a whole lot of culture and external influence, right?
right.
And you have only so much control, which is not to say that you do everything in your power,
Mm,
to do the best you can, and try and diffuse, the bad messaging from. So we have to change it from the world from inside and outside, I
mm.
think.
Okay. Great insight. And so we're at our final question. So this is a two-part question. I'll ask both parts at the same time. Now, you have been so very incredibly supportive of our Read for Pixels campaign and our anti-violence against women work as a whole. Okay, so the first part might seem a bit obvious. Why do you support the cause to end violence against women? And the second part, what do you think authors can do to help with the cultural change needed to eradicate violence against women and girls?
Oh boy, again, these questions just, this particular question just feels like sad that we have to even ask, right? I mean,
Mm,
in at the very base of it, I think violence in general is as a way of getting our way, or as a way of any kind of as a solution to anything, doesn't work for me. Uh, I'm entirely pacifist, right? In my day to day life, in everything, whether it is children, anything, right? because it can only denote power and
mm,
and an unhealthy balance of power in whatever way. So just the fact that that this thing is even possible, that 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 men are able to, or even manifest anything at all through violence against someone who obviously in that moment isn't able to protect themselves, is
mm,
just preposterous to me, because the only reason you're doing it is because you can, and that's such a sign of weakness for me, right? And so
mm,
I think it is the weakest thing anyone can do is to physically harm someone else. And I think that it's as a society, it's the most shameful thing that this still happens.
mm,
That even something like domestic violence happens, and and isn't really, like, the rates are not really dropping, or that we're not able to really you know nip this thing in the bud is just preposterous to me. So absolutely anything I think each one of us can do is not enough. And I think in terms of stories, there's so much that we can do just to um, you know I think make women feel powerful, because when we feel powerful, that probably is the only solution to allowing someone else to feel that powerful as to
mm.
harm you in a physical way. So yeah, I mean, I had an answer, and I wish we didn't have to have this conversation, and this none of this needed to have even be said or anything. But while in as long as it needs to be, I hope more and more people will be. And so the work you do is amazing, and and whatever it takes, right?
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you so much for that excellent session, Sonali. So, viewers, in case you missed the start of today's discussion, we are excited to let you know that Sonali has not only generously spent her time here with us today, but also donated a few super exclusive goodies to the stash of author goodies we have up as perks for donors at the Read for Pixels Rally at fundraising page. They are the Vibrant Years Bundle. You need to get this if you live in the US and enjoy gorgeously written women's fiction featuring three generations of fantastic Asian heroines. Pro tip, it works wonderfully as a gift too. Now, Sonali will be giving away 5 of these exclusive book and swag bundles to Read for Pixels donors in the US only, unfortunately, and 3 of which have already been snapped up by donors who wish to remain anonymous. But there are still 2 more available, so go ahead and get them. Now, the bundle includes one signed and personalized The Vibrant Years trade paperback, 2 bangles, 1 book-related sticker, and 2 book-related bookmarks. Sonali is also giving away her Austin in Bollywood bundle, which is also for donors who live in the US only. For all those fans of modern retellings of Jane Austen's evergreen romances, these 2 special bundles are Sonali's love letter to Austen with a gorgeous Bollywood twist. It includes one signed and personalized complete paperback set of the RAJES series, which includes Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors, Recipe for Persuasion, Incense and Sensibility, and the Emma Project. And you will also get 2 bangles, 1 book-related sticker, and 2 book-related bookmarks. And thank you to Saraswati Kannan, who has already donated to get one of these bundles. So if you're eyeing this bundle, hurry up and get the last one. And the last one was Sonali Dev's 1 hour Zoom call, which was available to one donor anywhere in the world and has already been taken up by one kind anonymous donor. There are also plenty more goodies available from authors and publishers such as Karen Oden, Chloe Lees, Angela Eureka Smith, Adiba Jogidar, Carol Goodman, Liana Renee Heber, Romina Garber, Entangled Publishing, and more. New goodies will be released every week throughout this month. We are currently at $925 out of our $5,000 goal, which is a bit slower than we would like at this stage of our fundraiser. So please do give generously before the fundraiser ends on April 15 next month. All funds go towards the Pixel Project's work to help end violence against women. Now, Okay, so you can donate to get these goodies on ReadyUp at tinyurl.com/R4P ReadyUp IWD 2023. And this is case sensitive, so please be careful when you type. Now, if you want to learn more about Read for Pixels, you can go to bit.ly Read for Pixels. Now, the Pixel Project's first charity anthology, Giving the Devil His Due, where the Twilight Zone meets promising young women, was a finalist in the 2021 Shirley Jackson Awards and is currently a finalist in the Audie Awards. It is available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook editions. The ebook and paperback versions are available for order from major booksellers worldwide, including Amazon, Kobo, Google Play, Book Depository, Barnes& Noble, and more. Additionally, we have teamed up with 12 of the 16 authors to offer an exclusive limited edition anthology bookplate for paperback buyers. Each author will sign 16 bookplates and it'll be first come, first serve. Each bookplate includes a resource for domestic violence and sexual assault victims and survivors in 205 countries. For more information about the anthology and how to score a bookplate, visit bit.ly/giving the devil his due. And the audiobook version is available from Audible, Apple, Google Play, Spotify, Kobo, Chirp, and other major audiobook retailers worldwide. Plus, as a bonus, for Women's History Month and International Women's Day this March, the audiobook is currently being offered for a special price of $8 until March 18, next Sunday. So do go get it quick if you haven't yet. For more information about the audiobook, visit tinyurl.com/GTDHD audiobook R4P. All net proceeds go towards keeping the Pixel Project's campaigns, programs, and initiatives, such as this one, alive and kicking. To find out more about violence against women, go to the Pixel Project's website at www.thepixelproject.net. Now, Sonali, do you have any announcements for us?
No, that's a gorgeous cover, but I do. I guess I do have an announcement. The Vibrant Tears ebook on Kindle is $2.99 this month, and when you buy the Kindle, of course, you get the Audible for $1.99. So that's a great deal, I think, and it's only this month. So if
Definitely.
you haven't yet, snap it up.
Yes, so go get the audiobook. So that's the end of our session today. Thank you so much to Sonali for that great session. And thank you to all of you who have been watching. Have a good day or good night wherever you are in the world.
Thank you. Bye.